everyone, hope you're doing really well and welcome back to my channel. We've got a little bit of a change in scenery today. As you can see, I'm in space. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about gap years, or should I say gap year. More specifically, my take on the pros and cons of taking a year out before uni. Back when I was applying to university, I applied for a deferred entry, which means I voluntarily wanted to take a year out and start a year later. And I did that because I thought I always wanted a cheeky little break from full-time education before setting off on my long journey of med school. I actually ended up having to retake one of my A-levels in that year, but that's a story that we'll save for story time. Right now, with all that's going on with the coronavirus pandemic, I know that a lot of students are considering deferring their entries to avoid missing out on a normal freshers experience if lectures end up being online or if all the freshers events are cancelled. And it is a big decision to make, to be fair, so I hope to shed some light and clarity on what a gap year could entail. I've made a nice little list with what I think are the potential benefits and disadvantages to taking a gap year, and to show you my thought process behind deferring. Before we begin, a little introduction if you've never seen my face before. My name's Julia and I'm a third year medical student at a university in London called King's College. So to start with, I should explain that in my gap year I was really fortunate, so I was able to dabble in a little bit of everything. So I did the classic little bit of volunteering abroad. I also got a job in retail to save up a bit of money, and then I did a bit more travelling before coming back for the last month to revise for the exam that I had to sit. So the first, and in my opinion most beneficial aspect to taking a gap year is the independence and the life lessons that you gain. I think that's slightly more applicable if you're able to work, travel or volunteer abroad, but it's something that I would easily recommend to anyone and everyone if you're able to, because it's honestly an invaluable experience. Throwing yourself right into the deep end and travelling to a place that you've never been to, for instance, forces you to learn life skills like planning, budgeting, talking to people and networking, cooking even, safety, and travelling itself is also a really useful skill to have. I think coming straight from school where you're looked after the whole time and almost sheltered from independence, it can be quite daunting and quite a shock to have to learn all of those skills on your own. But I do strongly believe that I was able to develop in confidence and build myself a good foundation before starting uni, and it just meant that when it was finally time for me to move out, it wasn't as dramatic or as daunting because I was already used to living away from home for weeks or months at a time. And I guess I just felt more equipped, more mature, and just more happy and confident to finally start my future with the skills that I had gained. So I'd say it's definitely worth it for the life lessons. My next pro to taking a gap year is that you have a lot of time to pursue your passions, find a new hobby, or do something that's always been on your bucket list. With a whole year to do whatever you want to do, it's the perfect time to learn about yourself, learn something new like a new language or an instrument, find a job, find some work experience, start reading, start writing, volunteering, working out, finally become a lifeguard, literally anything you want to do, you've got a year. It's such a good opportunity to self-reflect and to finally find out what your true passions and interests are outside of school. And that's even more valuable if perhaps you haven't applied to uni at all this year because you weren't sure of what you wanted to study, and there's no rush because you're better off taking a year out and actually researching properly what you like and what you're interested in, instead of flogging 27k at a degree that you chose a week before the UCAS deadline because you thought you had to. Which nicely leads me on to my third point, which is that it's the perfect opportunity to enrich your CV and maybe do a bit of work to save up some before uni, or to get some more work experience under your belt if it's something that would benefit you. Unfortunately, we live in a climate where it's no longer enough just to have a degree, and employers are always looking for experience, which is super hard to get. So how about a whole year to do just that? Even for certain degrees like medicine, for instance, unis love to see that you've done a solid amount of work experience that you can reflect on in your personal statement. So this is the perfect opportunity to do just that, and to also be able to max out that previous employment section of your CV. Another good reason of taking a gap year is meeting new people, and this can be both in the workplace or even more so if you're able to travel. I met so many amazing people on my gap year, literally at every point. I even did a bit of travelling with the people that I had actually met at my volunteering placement abroad, and we took a little detour before coming home, and they were from all walks of life, from all over the world, and I was super lucky to be able to meet them all. It really opens your mind to new cultures, new ways of living, and the world outside of your hometown, and you can learn so much from other people. And to be honest, to be able to meet those people and to form links and networks all around the world was one of the biggest highlights of the year for me. Of course, I realised that I was super lucky to be able to have that experience of travelling, but even when I was working, I did a temp role over Christmas in Harrods, where again I met so many lovely people, one of whom is one of my closest friends now. And it's just an opportunity to expand your network, because in school we're so used to being in a little bubble of people our own age. And so it's refreshing to be able to venture out into a new crowd and interact with people who you maybe never normally would. And a gap year is the perfect opportunity to do that. Now that I've properly gassed up taking a gap year, let me talk through some of the downsides of the matter. I think the biggest risk of taking a gap year is wasting valuable time. And I think that that's very, very easy to do if you don't have a clear, structured plan of what you want to accomplish each month. As we can see now in quarantine, it's so easy to procrastinate and waste time, and that's really not a trap that you want to fall into. It is, however, very preventable, as I said, if you have a clear plan, and so you really want to be making sure that you do your research as early as you can, apply to jobs as early as you can, and basically treat the year as if it was a normal academic year. So from September you want to know what you're going to be doing. So with me, for instance, I had already planned my first 2 months of what I wanted to do in July, so that I knew that when my friends went to uni I wouldn't be left behind like a lonely little lazy couch potato. Because the last thing that you want is to look back on your gap year and think that the only productive thing you did was binge watch the whole of Netflix, because it's not a good look. And so making plans is vital. Another potential drawback to taking a gap year is getting out of touch with academia, revision and studying in general. So although I had an exam to resit, I didn't actually start revising for it until about April, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't remember the last time I even picked up a pen, let alone read through a textbook, and so that was a little bit of a mission. Naturally, if you're having a whole year off, the transition of getting back into academic work could be a little bit tricky, and so the first semester of uni might be a bit more difficult than it could be. But to be honest, I think that by September there's no way that you would have lost all of your academic momentum, and so taking a long break might actually be beneficial, because by the end you would have been properly well rested and hopefully excited and mentally prepared to finally get stuck into the degree once you get to uni. The next potential disadvantage of taking a gap year is that it can get quite expensive depending on what you want to do. Travelling, for one, can get very expensive, obviously depending on where you want to go, how long for, and the companies that you want to travel with. Of course, not everyone can afford to go backpacking across the whole of Southeast Asia, but I do definitely think that with careful planning in advance and potentially finding a job or another stable source of income, it's definitely doable to organise fun activities, because you literally have a whole year to save up and to do just that. On top of that, there are so many websites and companies that offer student discounts for students wanting to travel and volunteer abroad, and you can find some really great deals for students on there. My next point I've written down, which I'm going to mention but I don't think actually matters too much, is that of course you'll be a year behind and it could get lonely. I sort of mentioned in one of my previous videos that I used to have the mentality that I wanted every year to count and I just wanted to be done with school ASAP. And looking back now, I think I disagree. And I think so long as you're being productive, time doesn't really matter. As I said, there are so many benefits to taking a gap year. So the year itself has a lot of purpose to it. And so in the long run, whether it's 1 year, 3 years or 5 years that you take in between, you'll get to where you want to be eventually in the end. I do sort of understand the feeling of being left behind if all of your friends are going to uni, but there is no reason that you can't visit them there. And don't forget, you're not going to be on a gap year forever, so you're still going to get to go to uni and meet those new people and do everything that everyone else would be doing, just at a slightly later date, which is fine. And actually gap years are becoming more and more common, so don't be afraid that you'll be going into uni a year later than everyone else, because everyone starts uni at different times, and trust me, a year later is not tragic at all. And so to summarise, if I had to give my own advice to someone who's still a little bit on the fence about taking a gap year, I would say that it is without a doubt an amazing experience and will definitely prep you better for university life. Of course it's not for everyone, and some people would genuinely prefer just to go straight into uni and carry on with their education and just get it over and done with. But I think that at the ages of 18 and 19, it's actually the perfect opportunity to slow down a bit and be able to experience new things which you might not be able to experience again after uni once you've got other commitments and debt to be worrying about. And as classic and maybe as cringy as it sounds, I do strongly believe that a gap year helps me to mature and grow in confidence and also be more open-minded, which I'm so grateful for. And so all in all, with the right planning, I would recommend it, and I would do it again if I could, 100%. And that brings me to the end of this video. I hope it was useful to anyone who's still thinking about deferring, and for anyone who is taking a gap year, my one piece of advice to you is plan ahead. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful, and of course subscribe, and hopefully see you all very soon. Bye!